First of all, let's talk. I'm not famous. I'm well known, and I'm a medium-sized fish in a very small pond.
But if I could be a little bit more specific, even like I notice in myself, right? Like maybe like I feel nervous when I'm meeting someone who seems to be like this, and it seems to maybe like take me away from my center, like become like less genuine or something like that. So it just occurred to me that it might be interesting to ask you about that. What you think is going on there? I don't know. Maybe you've experienced that. If there's someone you really like that you've met.
Would you like to lie down on the couch? I charge by the hour, to speak to my secretary. Yeah, I mean, you have to understand everything that we see out there is only our version of it. It's all subjective. It's all projection. So we live in a world that we're creating, essentially, ourselves. Not consciously creating, but all our karmic load is magnifying and redesigning and what we call the outside world. So you say when you meet somebody that you think or you feel, when anyone meets somebody that they feel is bigger than them, more powerful, more handsome, taller, whatever, richer, we judge ourselves based on what we're seeing out there, that we're less than that. So immediately we feel bad. And then we start compensating. Some people get arrogant, some people get defensive, some people get depressed. We're swimming in a subjective ocean all the time. My ocean is my guru. And my work, although it's not really work, it's what I remember is that it's all his play. It's very difficult when it's not working very well out there, but for instance, I don't feel famous, I just feel like me. Other people see me a certain way because that's the setup, that's the way it looks. But as far as in my life, this and what I do, this is all his doing. I'm just the radio. He turns me on, he turns me off.
Even the thoughts.
Even thoughts? Well, thoughts, no, that's the internal reality. I was talking about the external reality, what it looks like on the outside. The internal reality is a little different because thoughts arise. We don't know where they come from, we don't know where they go. We don't know why they show up and why they go away. But they say that everything that shows up in this moment is a result of our own karmic stuff from the past.
They say?
They say. I don't say because I don't know. They say is what I say when I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's what they say. They said everything right now is a fruit of our own actions, our own past actions.
But you don't necessarily believe that, or you do believe that's the case?
I do believe it, but I haven't experienced the reality of that necessarily very deeply. That would be big time. But still, you can have an understanding of that, an awareness of that, and that helps us short-circuit the knee-jerk reactions that naturally occur that create more karmas. Right? In other words, if we're understanding that everything that shows up in our awareness is in some sense our own creation from the past, our own past, then we recognize that in this moment we have the possibility of unjerking those reactions.
So it's like something's showing up and the question is, what am I choosing to do with it?
I mean, it would be good to have a choice. Mostly we don't, It would be good to have a vote, but mostly we don't. And recognizing that is a big thing though, because everybody thinks that they're totally control their lives, which is 159,000% wrong. We're not in control of shit. What we might get a vote in is how we meet each moment, but not in the moment. You have to be working on that so that the fruits of your work, your inner work, show up in the moment. But in the moment, unless you've been doing a practice, unless you've been paying attention very strongly in that sense, you're not going to get much vote in the moment of how we act. And once again, for me, it's just people project a lot of stuff onto me that luckily, by Maharaj's grace, I don't take it too personally. I mean, it's probably better than getting beaten up every day. But I try to pay attention to that, and just be present with people best I can. A lot of it depends on what you want in life, At this point in my life, I just want to be with him all the time. But I'm so far away from that all the time that it's, but still, that's what I want. That's the longing, to be in that presence, in that love all the time. So if that's the motivation for living, then you're in pretty good shape in terms of the long run. But I didn't always, I always wanted that, but I also had lots of other desires that overshadowed and pushed that out of the way for periods of time. And now that I'm old, I need a crane to get out of bed. Some of those desires have lessened enough to kind of, okay, next.
Is your practice something along the lines of, you notice the times when you're not in that place that you want to be, and then moving into that place, attempting to move into that place as often as you can?
Yes and no. It's a little tricky because our job is not to hold on to those experiences. We can't hold on. Our job is to be here with whatever shows up. And like the third patriarch of Zen said, the great way is not difficult for those with no preferences. All we have is preferences. All day long, all life long. That's all we have is preferences. So, but recognizing that is the first step in releasing some of that obsession with our preferences and our aversions, of course. Preferences for this and preferences for not wanting that, So that's pretty much how we go through life. We don't know where we come from. We don't know where we're going. And basically, we don't even know we're here most of the time. So we're fucked.
Do we need to know?
Ain't no hope. Do we need to know? No. But, if you don't know how to drive a car, you're going to go right over the cliff.
But what I think you're saying, like the paradox in a way, is like, it seems that by, in a way, not knowing or not having preferences, something changes, something shifts genuinely. Like by not knowing, maybe then a little semblance of wisdom comes from that place.
Wisdom is awareness. It's not mental understanding. It's not intellectual understanding. Wisdom is not knowledge. Knowledge comes and goes. Wisdom is being. Wisdom is presence. Wisdom is real love that doesn't come and go. That's wisdom. Wisdom equals being. It's not something you learn. It's something you already have that you uncover as time goes on. One of the images is the mirror of the heart. For instance, in the Hanuman Chalisa, it says, I take the dust, the pollen-like dust from the lotus feet of the Guru to clean the mirror of my heart. That's the first step. is first to connect with Guru, which is being, which is real love, presence, Bodhicitta, kindness, compassion, and take that and clean the mirror of our heart. And the mirror is covered with the dust of our stuff. So when we look in a mirror that's covered with dust, what do we see? Dust. When we clean a little bit, we get a little glimpse of something behind the dust. Yeah. Finally, when the dust is clear, you see your true nature. You see yourself. You become aware of what's really there. It's always here. There's nowhere else. We can't be anywhere else. You're always here, wherever you are. Every moment of every day of your whole life, you're always here, but we're not paying attention.
So, is it paying attention to the dirt?
Well, you kind of have to. Like Rabbi Svoboda says, if you don't deal with reality, it deals with you. You can try to, you can do all kinds of practices and maybe even get some kind of bliss and happy states, pleasant states, but they're not going to last unless we've cleaned the mirror of our hearts of that dust, because then more dust will just accumulate. We're actually constantly throwing more dust on the mirror, more stuff, more stupidity, more anger, more greed, more shame, more fear, more selfishness. That's how we go through our lives, just piling shit on the mirror.
You don't think there's also the piling of the good stuff, the gratitude, the love, the kindness?
That's not stuff. That stuff, that is like an echo of our true nature, because it relieves us of the ridiculous belief that we are separate from everything, and that everybody's a separate little bubble. We appear that way on one level, but the reality is that everything in your bubble is exactly the same as everything in my bubble. But we don't see that.
See, I wonder if seeing that gives the motivation to clean my own heart. Like if I really believe and even know that this is true, what you're saying, that we are connected, that is the same thing going on, is there a really powerful motivation to sincerely do my work?
Yeah, there is, but really the real motivation is suffering. You can do your work, you can try to do all these things, you can try to meditate, but if you're trying to avoid suffering, none of that will last. So you have to deal with suffering. That's why Buddha, when he came out of the jungle, he said, "Yo, monks, shit don't work. Don't think it's going to work. It ain't going to work. There will always be dissatisfaction in this world, because nothing lasts. It's called impermanence." So recognizing that and really embracing that is very difficult. But it's the only real motivation. The fact that you die. The fact that everything you grab slips through your fingers or disappears or changes. And because, once again, it's all our own subjective stuff. So like in a relationship, you fall in love. The perfect partner is forever. This is it. I finally got it. And then, little by little, that projection slides down the wall and drips away.
It seems like the universe is like pointing us in the direction of humility. Like just when you think in a situation like this, it's like, no, not so fast.
Well, of course, because the universe is in a state of grace. We are who we think we are is not. The delusionary sense of a separate self, which we're not separate, but they call it self-grasping, and Buddhism talks about self-grasping. We hold on to this the movie of me, which would live all life long. How am I now? Where am I? What's this? How is that person? Do they like me? They don't like me. It all refers to this me-ness.
Identity.
it's a false identity because it's just thoughts.
And insecurity, right?
Well, those are the emotions, yeah. And the emotions are the wind that blows the thoughts, that keeps the thoughts moving around. All those emotions, which we love so much, which we're so identified with, which grab us so quickly and deeply. That's what keeps the mind, not the mind, but the thoughts moving. Because mind, it's a funny word. It really means like the sky. Ultimate being is mind. Clouds are thoughts which go through and block us from experiencing that presence, that space. When the clouds pass, oh, it was always there. We just couldn't see it because of our identification with our thoughts and emotions.
Do you think perhaps the largest challenge in having a different type of experience is perhaps the amount of people around you that you're exposed to that are, taking their identity very seriously, living in thoughts and words a lot, that in a way it's hard to not be included in the community at all, and that a lot of people, maybe they see that the suffering that they have, but they still want to be a part of what's going on, of how other people are, so they continue.
Can't blame other people. They're just being themselves.
I mean, more to say like that it's just an obstacle, and by realizing what the obstacle is, maybe that allows for a different way.
Well, everybody has their own version of obstacles, For instance, if I thought that everybody out there when I'm singing with people, when I'm chanting, let's put it this way: when I chant I don't chant to the people, I chant to my guru. So everybody there in the room is my guru. So where's the obstacle? This is how you see it, is what the obstacle is.
Or to even appreciate the obstacle.
In what way? It's not to appreciate
that it's there for a reason, that by being with it, accepting it, that has the potential to take me to a different place.
Yeah, sure. But you see, this is where we come to the real crux of the matter, is practice. You can't, when you've fallen off a cliff, it's hard to find any peace of mind. You're about to hit the ground at 100,000 miles an hour. So practice, daily practice, regular practice, whatever that means to a person, is the most important thing, is dropping an anchor into the ocean, and then when the winds blow you this way and that way, you're not blown around too much. And that's the only thing there is. That's the ability, the longing, the desire, the openness to do practice is already grace. It's a ripening process, and the more we practice letting go of our stuff and coming back home, the more seeds of being that we plant in ourselves, of recognizing ourselves, our true self. It takes time. A spontaneous enlightenment takes millions of lifetimes to happen. So,
do you feel that there's some force that has interest in ripening you, almost like like to allow the ripening to happen?
Well, for me, once again, it was meeting my guru, which was before I met him physically. It was coming into contact with my guru that it moved me in a direction. It put me on a path. In a sense, that's my first, a deepest awareness of the direction that I was going. it's very difficult for us to believe in that the universe has our best interests at heart. Because look at it, what's going on out there? It's pretty crazy. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of violence, a lot of really crazy stuff going on in the world. So it's very difficult for us to go through the day with a sense of this is all in my best interest. But it is. You know, it has to be, because that's the way things are. So practice is very important. You know, Maharaji Ninkroli Baba, he said, from repeating the names of God, everything is accomplished. You know, he didn't tell us to meditate. He didn't tell us to do all these, you know, any ascetic kind of practices. He actually said, the Westerners, they can get everything through devotion. Which is interesting, you know, I'm still working on that 50 years later. But he said, Ram Nam Karma Se Sapura Ujata, from going on repeating the names of God, everything is accomplished. You see, if we don't practice, and really practice is the word, if we don't practice, if we don't remember to practice on a regular basis, we're just lost in our stuff all the time. You can't think yourself out of a room, out of a prison that's made out of thoughts. The thoughts are the prison itself.
I've heard you say that before,
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to actually ask you. I'm glad you brought it up, because I probably would have forgotten.
Yeah.
And I totally agree, but I wonder if certain thoughts can be gateways for us and are important gateways for us.
Absolutely, because we're always going to be thinking something. When I was going to kill myself in the temple in India with Maharaji right there, I was suicidal, having a nervous breakdown, hallucinations, the whole thing. He said, don't think of yourself. Don't think about yourself. What? Like, how? He said, Jesus died for Jesus tried to die, but he became immortal because he never thought of himself. He only gave his life for his people, he said. He never thought of himself. The whole Bodhisattva trip, the vow, taking a vow of Bodhisattva, which means that everything you do is for the sake of other beings as well as yourself. But you're here for other beings. So if you start cultivating that kind of feeling that we're here to serve others, we're here to, like, et cetera, when we're thinking those thoughts, we can't be thinking about ourselves. Although that can get very neurotic, and it can actually be, you can become I am a great bodhisattva. No, you know, if you can think that, you're not. So, but not, it becomes that everything becomes less self-referential. You know, you're more concerned with other people. How are you today? How are you? What's going on? You see somebody who's suffering or fucked up or something, and instead of just like, great, you know, you notice it. You begin to notice other people and who they are and what's going on inside them. And even that's just a big thing, because mostly we don't notice. We only notice our versions of other people. But eventually you start to see things more clearly. So when we're thinking about other people, we can't be thinking about ourselves. You know, when Maharaji told Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth, Ramdas said, the truth is I don't love everyone. You know, but 50 years later, he loved everyone, and that was the truth. He overcame 99.99% of that egoistic delusion.
I think about that all the time. I hear his voice saying, you know, as he's telling the story, saying, you know, but Maharaji, I can't love everyone. You know? And
He didn't say he can't, he said, I don't. Maharaji leaned in one close and he said,
love everyone.
and tell the truth.
Tell the truth,
But the two things together. It wasn't just love everyone, it was tell the truth. So after the stroke really saved his life. He told me the stroke saved my life because he had whatever, but it forced him to be present. And there was nothing he could do for himself anymore. He couldn't go out driving, couldn't go out and get laid, couldn't get in an airplane, he couldn't go play golf, he couldn't even feed himself, couldn't wipe his own ass. So he had to surrender to that. And how hard is that? That would destroy most people, and it does. Most people, they crumble, you know. They get angry, depressed, you know, all kinds of things, their whole lives. Very few people can really deal with that. And he just became more present and more aware and kinder and more loving and more, over time. It was 20-year cycle.
Did that have a big impact on you, observing that?
It was a very big impact, sure. He and I had not been close for quite a few years. Let's see. I would say it was a long period of time where we weren't close, maybe over 10 years, maybe more. I mean, we'd see each other once in a while, maybe go out to dinner once or twice a year, but he was doing one thing, I was away. But after the stroke, a group of us gathered closely around him to help him, you know, make sure he had enough a place to live, enough to eat, you know, a support system. So we got very close after that. Very close. And he never complained. You know, if I stubbed my toe in the morning, the whole day is ruined. He never complained, and he was always in pain. Neuropathy from diabetes. I think he had either hip replacement or knee replacement. Torn rotator cuffs in his shoulder, so he couldn't even turn himself in bed anymore. You know, I mean, really, he needed care. Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't transfer. At one point, he could transfer himself from the wheelchair to a regular chair. But one time, he forgot to lock the wheelchair, so when he tried to get into it from the chair, it slid out from under him and he fell and broke something. So, but yeah, over the years, he really became something special. He really let go of a lot of one lifetime stuff, and it's really, by the end, it was really extraordinary. It was wonderful.
I listened to you, you know, speak about that, and you know, like the potential for a situation like that to happen. Like honestly, it scares the shit out of me, right? Like you don't know how you might respond to something like that. Like it's impossible, right? And just talking about the practice, I think maybe that was the point you were making before, right? On the way down from the cliff, like, you know, maybe the practice flies out the window. So it's just a hope that the practice will have an effect when the real challenge comes, but it's impossible to know. Yeah.
Well, it's not impossible to know. I mean, how are you now? How are you every day? How are you going to be later is how you be now too. But that's why practice is so important. It's not hope. If you're doing practice, there's a part of you that understands that this is what it is, that it's necessary. You're not the first person in the world to do practice. There's thousands of years of sadhus, saints, dakinis, yoginis, and babas that have been doing practice and have achieved what we want to achieve. So it's not hope. It's real faith. It's not blind faith. It's really knowing that this is the path, that this is possible. And fear is just another thought. But it can be a good motivation as long as it doesn't become your whole atmosphere. I mean, because when you're doing practice, you feel fear, next thought, go away. That's why from practice, you know, because you're doing it. You're sitting there and you're letting go of your thoughts. You're coming back to the breath or the mantra or whatever. You're actually doing it. You're not thinking about doing it, you're doing it. And that's 10 minutes from now, you're going to do it. A year from now, you're going to do it. So if you can do it now, you'll be able to do it later. It's just fear is a little death, they call it. You know, it kills the ego. It kills you, not the ego. It kills you. So that's why, you know, and so any kind of practice that we do, whether it's mantra repetition or mindfulness practice, concentration practice, these are seeds we're planting in our own mind stream, in our own hearts, that will bring fruit at the right moment, when the right moment arises. So if we have fear, and there's a lot of fear these days for a lot of reasons, what do we do with it? Do we just allow it to like seep into us and push us around and program our behavior? No, we have to become aware of that. And it's not that we can push it away. You can't. You push something away, it sticks to you, you know. But when you become aware of it, when you notice it, then you're not in it the same way. So that's why, and the ability to notice, the ability to go, to see something like that, in that way, is the fruit of practice. It's the fruit of coming back from, you know, sitting for 30 minutes and actually being present for like a second and a half every day. And that second and a half is good. And that second and a half will have tremendous results. It might even become a second and 3/4 someday. So it's very important to bring ourselves back. And whether understanding it intellectually is really not that important. The less you think about it, the better it is. Just do it and live your life. And realize that you are on a path that's been traveled by billions of beings over the years. By every saint, every Buddha, every avatar, every being, every devotee. We're all walking the same path.
Nina mentioned that you used to be a bus driver.
School bus driver.
School bus driver.
And a truck. I drove a truck for a while too.
I've recently considered that being a school bus driver might be underrated in terms of how challenging it is.
I had fun.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, they called me the hippie bus driver. I had junior high school kids and high school kids in this town in upstate New York. And they loved me because I used to race the other drivers. I had a lot of fun that year.
Do you think you learned a lot spending time with children, especially?
I don't know. That was before I met Ramdas. So it was a rough period of my life. That year was pretty bad. But I enjoyed with the kids a lot. They were very sweet for me. I had longish hair. And in those days, what was that, 67? It was upstate New York, was still pretty conservative. There weren't a lot of long-haired school bus drivers.
What was the experience of COVID like for you?
I hate to say it, but I was happy as a pig in shit. I just, every day at home, oh my God, I didn't get out of my pajamas for a year and a half. It was great. I mean, but every Thursday night I was online with people. And that was wonderful, actually, you know, being able to interact with people online a lot. And yeah, it was pretty scary at first. We didn't know what was going to happen, you know. But whatever was going to happen was going to happen. Stayed home. Had to wash the boxes. The food came. You get food delivered. You had to wash it. You know, I remember it was pretty nuts at first. Then it kind of leveled off, and yeah, I had some good friends who died from COVID. So it was very difficult in that way.
Do you still feel connected to those who have passed, Ram Dass and other friends?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Do you have a sense that their consciousness is still around and interacting with it at all?
I would have to sense that I was conscious, which I don't necessarily have. But yeah, I mean, some of the people that died were very close to me. I was very close with them. You know, I miss them a lot. I'm very emotional that way. I feel them and I miss them. It's not like, oh, I feel, oh, wonderful, you're happy in your new birth now, you know. No, I miss you, you son of a bitch. Get back here. But they can't. So you just do the best you can with your sadness.
Is there anything in particular that you do with your sadness that might be helpful to someone else to hear?
I mope around, you know.
Just do it. Do you feel like there's some value, though, in that experience of being sad?
Not necessarily, no. No value. I mean, it could be. In other words, when you notice your own sadness, this is one of the ways that you can kind of get out of yourself. When you notice you have sadness, for instance, about someone who's died, then you start to think, well, almost everybody out there has had someone who died. Everybody born had parents that are no longer here or won't be here in a short time. So you go, wait a minute, you know, you're not alone. You're part of a world of people that are hurtling towards death at varying speeds, and nobody really knows, you know. So you go, whoa, maybe I better get my shit together. Or maybe you can expand your feeling for other people. If I feel so bad, so much other people must feel so bad. And you kind of connect to that universal reality of the suffering. And it kind of takes you out of your own little world. You know, then you're not the only one who's lost somebody. You know. Everybody's lost somebody. There's no person ever been born who didn't lose a parent. Which is pretty interesting to think about. You know? But still, it's almost miraculous how we go through the day, making plans, you know? And I just so unconsciously not recognizing that we're going to hit the wall. It was funny, once we were watching a movie with Ram Dass. Someone made a movie about Ram Dass. And Ram Dass and I and a few other people were watching it. And in the movie were a lot of snippets from old lectures that he gave, like a long time ago, way before the stroke. I didn't really like the movie. So after the movie was over, Siddhi Ma, who was Ram Dass's main caretaker, was sitting and she started asking each one of us what we thought of the movie, and I tried to hide, you know, but she got me. So I looked over at Ram Dass and I said, well, it's a little creepy. And he goes, creepy? And I said, yeah. I looked right at him. I said, yeah. There you are, you know, talking about suffering, talking about suffering and this and that and suffering. And you're about to hit the wall at 100,000 miles an hour and you don't know it.
Mm.
He went, yeah. Yeah. And that's how we live, right?
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that we have to live in fear. That wouldn't be good.
Gratitude seems to be a better option.
Gratitude would be nice, but that's hard to, it's hard to that takes a little practice. But we can't let the fear of death crush us, but it can motivate us. I mean, you know, there's that line, oh, I remember when I was young and I knew everything. You know, it's kind of like that. The older you get, the closer theoretically, we're getting closer to that moment where the body's going to go. But most of older people in this world, we don't pay attention to that. Basically because we have no understanding there's anything else to do, no good way to live. Most people just live from one, like ping pong balls, back and forth, all, you know, bouncing off of this, bouncing off of that, blindly reacting to things, and then you're dead. Because we don't have the realistic understanding of life and death. Death is the end, there's nothing after that. Maybe, but that's not what the people that I respect the most say.
Mm.
They say, first of all, how you live is how you die.
Mm.
And second of all, your, whatever you want to call it, your soul or your consciousness takes another form after it leaves this vehicle. So once again, that's what they say. I don't know, but I'm going to find out soon enough.
Even now, I think I can ask the question, you know, does this matter? Do I sense that this matters, or does it not matter? You know?
Does it? It's up to you. Does it matter?
I think it is a choice. Yeah.
You think it's a choice? Wait until you're just about to drive off a cliff. You know, it's not, you know, how you react at that moment. You're not going to have any choice unless you've been present, unless you've been working on yourself. And life is, in a sense, preparation for death. Everything we do, they say the only thing you can take with you when you leave is your consciousness. You know, and so have we been conscious at all?
Mm.
Or have we just been watching TV and reels on Facebook, you know, all day long? That's the questions we have to ask ourselves, and everybody can or not ask. Nobody can make you ask. But if you want to be happy, see, the problem is we don't really even believe in happiness, real happiness. We believe and crave pleasure. That's what we're addicted to. We're addicted to pleasure, and we're addicted to pushing pain away, replacing it with pleasure. But of course, pleasure don't last, and neither does pain last. And for most people, you know, one way or another, it dissipates, and more pleasurable experiences arise. So that's what we're stuck in, the pleasure-pain thing, the pairs of opposites: pleasure, pain, loss, gain, fame, shame, etc., etc. So if we're stuck in that, then of course, well, you know, death is it's over at death. But happiness, real love, if we have a longing for that, that's something else. That's beyond the pleasure and pain thing. And then the practices we do, the meditation, the service of others, the kindness, the compassion, that opens up a different place in us. And and we think about ourselves less. Like, for the most part, these days, I mean, how I feel used to be the most important thing to me in the world. Like, how am I now? Am I depressed? Am I okay? Am I happy? I kind of don't even think like that anymore. I don't know why, but I just go through my day. I'm not really like, how am I now? How am I now?
Mm.
You know, but there's enough of it, but it's not like it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Maybe the most important moment in my life when, by grace, I had the realization of how exhausted I was from judging myself, just nonstop. It's like, oh, okay. Do you want to continue exhausting yourself? Asking that question, how am I now? How do I compare to other people?
Yeah.
It's totally exhausting.
It is, yeah. Yeah, and of course, it's based on a lack of self-love. Yeah. Self-judging, self-hatred. Programs that are running and will continue to run unless we pull the plug on them and let them die. And pulling the plug on those programs is part of what happens with practice. You notice, like, if you just sat and labeled a thought, not it's a thought about this or a thought about that, and how I feel about that thought about that, thinking, and then you come back to your breath. It's very powerful.
Do you think in a way it actually is a sort of death, like not the death at the end, but it's a death of maybe the ego, call it, or the identity? So it's a practice of dying in a way.
That's wishful thinking.
Why is it wishful?
Because, like Ramana Maharshi said, asking the mind or the ego to kill the mind or ego is like asking the thief to be the policeman. There'll be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made. Most of us do our practice for very neurotic reasons. We want to feel good. We don't want to suffer. But that's egoistic motivation. That's just more me.
But what if you know for sure, absolutely, that by doing that, by suffering less yourself, you will have the ability to serve, be a much better instrument for others?
Yeah. Yes, if that was true.
It's not true?
It's only true to how much we really believe it. If we really believed it, our lives would be instantly different, completely. So to the amount, the degree that we believe it, that's how different our lives are, which is about this much. But it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Not much better. But it's a beginning, Of course, you have to have. We Westerners especially like to have like an intellectual outline of things before we're going to let ourselves get into it. We want to kind of understand what's going to happen. But that's very, for the most part, that's not very useful. But it does let us get our toe in the water. And once we get our toe in the water, we go, oh, that's what it feels like. And that's different. So whatever we have to do in order to get our toe in the water is a good thing. But mostly we just sit and look at the water. Wow, it would be great to be in that water. I'll feel like this and this. And then we go watch TV and forget the water.
But for sure, I think there's only one way to get in the water, and that's practice, right? I mean, is there another way?
No. Well, practice happens by grace. Maharaji used to say to us, we'd be sitting with him and he would start teasing us and he would say, I have the keys to the mind. I could turn your minds against me. And we'd say, Baba, don't do that. And he would laugh. So he would say, transfer, oh Jaga, I'll transfer you. No, Baba, don't do it. But of course he did, actually. He transferred everybody back to America. But so many years later, I said to Siddhi Ma, who was Maharaji's great disciple, devotee, I said, Maharaji said he has the keys to the mind. So to me, that means that I am where he puts me, where he's placed me. That's it. I'm in, his mind is the universe, and I am exactly where. So, is it all his doing, or is my, is my effort required? She said, Krishnadas, it's all his grace. But you have to act like it isn't. And that's the best. That's,
okay, well, the last part though, yeah, I don't know if I thought you have to act like it isn't. Why?
Because you don't know that. You don't know that. It is all his grace.
Yeah.
It is his world. It's his universe. You're only living in it. In fact, you're not even you. You're him.
Yeah.
But you don't know that. So your effort is required to get the realization.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just sit around and say, oh, it's all his grace, and then you get run over by a car. Right. Or run over by your own mind. Yeah. No, our effort is required in order to, I mean, if you want to drink some water and the rains, you have to cup your hands.
Yeah.
You can't just, you have to cup your hands. That's your effort.
Right. But I think ultimately, maybe what she's saying is that even that effort itself is also comes from that same place. It's not any different.
You think so? Ultimately,
I do. Ultimately, I think there's nothing to do, but I forget.
Yeah, but you do a lot every moment. Every thought you have is doing. So thinking there's nothing to do is not the same as doing nothing. Doing nothing would be no attachment to any thought. The thoughts just run through. You're not thinking, but you are thinking. That's doing. You can't just sit around and say there's nothing to do. The effort, our effort is required to do our practice, to come back home again and again and again until we don't identify with those things that go through. And that can happen. And then you have nothing to say about it because you're not there that way. But yeah, so there, in Buddhism they talk about two realities: ultimate reality and relative reality. Relative reality has rules. You stop at the red and go at the green. Ultimate reality, there's nothing to say. Both are true, but one's only relatively true. Relative reality is within ultimate reality, but ultimate reality is not in relative reality. Relative reality, there's yes and no, positive, negative, all kinds of stuff. Ultimate reality is like the sky. It's just always here. And relative reality is like everything that moves within it. It has rules and motivations and all that stuff. So the repetition of the name is a way to remember the sky. But it's not like a visualization that I am the sky. No, I am not the sky. I think I'm the sky. That's different than being the sky. When no thought that you stick to arises or comes through your awareness, then skyness is here. Presence is, you recognize presence. You're no longer thinking you are who you think you are. Because that's what we do. We think we are who we think we are. If we didn't think, we wouldn't be that. But thinking is constant. Thoughts don't stop. They just go through and you're not thinking them. You notice them, but you're not thinking them. It's really different. It's a different state.
There's gaps too. There's gaps too between the thoughts, yeah?
There definitely are.
That's what I mean by gateways. To me, that's very important. Also, I hear what you're saying, but reminding my mind, this is a gateway for me, reminding my mind that I don't need to be interested in my thoughts, right? Or that I love the space, that it's safe to be in the space. Those types of things are gateways for me.
Then you have to let yourself feel that, though. It's not just enough to remind yourself, oh yeah, I don't have to do it, yeah. but because the flow of thought just keeps going on.
Mm.
You have to allow yourself to be.
And that's the power, to me, is in the being, because I think it's the most precious thing to experience, and it's almost like the body, the spirit, is falling in love with that, and it seems to get easier with practice. But the more that this entity knows, experiences the sweetness of that, the easier it seems to be to return to that place.
That's good.
Is there, for you, an appropriate amount of acknowledgement for yourself of...
There's not even an appropriate amount of sleep.
I just mean to say, like, I know you're holding the space, chanting with people, and that it means a lot. And to be honest with you, like, I've noticed something, like with my father, and maybe you might be around the same age, and other men of that generation, where it's very challenging to give themselves any kind of credit, for doing something good. That's very, very deep and embedded. And I don't know, from where I'm standing on a certain plane, I think it's very important and beautiful what you do. And I'm just asking if you ever allow yourself to just say, okay, KD, like you're doing good,
Well, I guess I have a little bit of problem with giving myself credit for doing something. I do show up. I do the best I can. But the problem is that I know who's really doing this. If I didn't know that, that would be a big problem. So I'm just grateful that he uses me this way. He created all this himself. I was not going in a good direction in my life. I would have been dead a long time ago, more than once. For whatever reason, he's kept me around to do this. I don't really know what credit I deserve for that.
Yeah, but isn't it similar to what we were speaking about in terms of relative and ultimate? And if I'm going to be hard on myself for the negative, at least, and
I don't see it as being hard on myself at all. I suppose it could look that way, and maybe it is somehow psychologically there's some program running. I don't doubt it, but this is something else. I mean, look at this. It's insane. It's insane. And to think I'm doing this is even more insane.
No, I mean, I know you're right. That's why I said on a particular level, of operation,
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. But and Siddhi Ma made it really clear to me, of course. And she was always telling me, rest, don't travel so much, and if you travel for this long, then stay home for this long. And I said, Ma, I just want to be healthy enough to just keep chanting with people. And she was quiet for a minute. And she looked at me and she said, well, Krishnadas, if and when the time comes that Maharaji no longer requires your seva, it's like a promotion. If and when the time comes, he no longer needs you to do this, you won't be doing it. Period. Then? And I said, I don't want a promotion. I just want to keep chanting. So get out of here. That's the greatest thing anybody's ever said to me, really. One of the greatest things. If and when the time comes, the Maharaji no longer requires your seva. Oh, I thought I had something to do with this. if and when the time comes. Will I know or I won't? Who knows how it'll happen? Maybe I'll just wake up one day and say, I'm finished. Or maybe, who knows? I have no idea if and when the time comes what it'll look like. And it's if and when, not when or just if. If and when the time comes. So, but I'm happy. I mean, happy to be doing this, really. I'm kind of like a river. When it slows down and stagnates, it gets polluted. It just keeps, the more I keep moving, the better I feel. It's a little bit difficult on the body once in a while, but mentally, I'm so happy to be able to do this.
Do you think care for the body is
I think it's very important.
very important? Yeah.
Yeah, when you're younger, you think you're going to live forever and you can do anything. You can eat as much sugar as you like. But when your body starts not to be able to do what it always did easily, you go, oh, you go, wow, there's a expiration date on some of these organs. They're just going to stop working at some point. Really? I don't want that to happen. You have nothing to say. There's an expiration date. It's written right on your liver. So whoa, okay. Then you really start to pay attention. And you only have like 20 cookies instead of 40 cookies.
Why is food so delicious? Yeah.
So.
Well, I just want to say it's really great to have you here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming back again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.